Story 1. On my last day at my job, I was saying goodbye to everyone, and an old-timer who worked there forever said to me, "You're the only person to work here that nobody ever had a bad thing to say about."
I'd probably cry if someone told me that on my last day. It's so rare to find people who are just purely good vibes in a corporate setting. Good luck at the new spot, because they'll be lucky to have you.
Story 2. I was walking into an office building. I was about 22 years old, long-haired, pasty, and overweight, wearing a shirt and tie that made me uncomfortable, headed to a job interview I was pretty intimidated about. In the lobby, an older black lady who was headed for the door pointed at me and said, "You look sharp." I said, "Thanks. Job interview." She looked me up and down, nodded and said, "You'll get it." Then we walked past each other and she was gone. I got in the elevator, stood up straighter than I had in hours, went up to the office, interviewed my ass off, and got it.
That's awesome. That lady was your guardian angel in that moment.
I love little moments like that. It reminds me that there's some hope for humanity. That black lady is the best.
Story 3. A close friend told me I'm the most genuine person he's ever known. The fact that it came from a close friend gave it that extra weight that cemented it into my psyche forever.
There's something powerful about being seen by someone who knows you deeply and still choosing the word genuine. That kind of affirmation stays with you because it feels earned, not handed out lightly.
Story 4. When a small kid stops, looks at you and says, "You're pretty," that's a win.
Chuckles, a friend, was at a grocery store, and a little girl saw him and said, "Mommy, look at the scary man."
About 10 years ago, my coworker's little daughter thought I was Katy Perry. I was so flattered. Pretty sure it's mostly because I have a similar name and hair, but I'll take it. Chuckles.
Story 5. Someone I absolutely respected told me how smart they thought I was. It's really stuck with me.
Compliments from random people are nice and all, but when they come from someone you respect, that's basically life fuel.
Story 6. Chuckles, my wife told me my ass was out of this world in the new pants I'd bought 14 years ago.
That's 2 times in 50 years. Thank you.
I, too, think your ass is out of this world.
You have to throw away those 14-year-old pants now. A new pair will suit that ass way better.
Story 7. In college, a professor wrote on one of my papers, "You have it in you to be a first-class writer in any league."
I have published a few short stories and 1 blog to book with a major publisher. But now I'm a type of technical writer with a great job. So yes, just not the way I thought it would be.
Story 8. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, pointed to me with a smile and excitedly said, "Arwen," as we were all leaving the movie theater after watching the first Lord of the Rings movie. That made me feel good. I still think about that sweet little boy.
Chuckles. Yeah, there are worse things than being told you look like the classic beauty, Liv Tyler.
Story 9. Warmly, someone once told me my laugh made them feel happy just by hearing it, and I swear I still carry that with me on rough days. Story 10. I was the dietary manager at a Veterans Affairs home. A resident told me, "You've really been a blessing to this place." That made all the hard work worth it with just a simple statement. Story 11. Some dude I used to work with told me, "You're the only person who can explain this without making me feel stupid." I don't know why, but that one just stuck. It feels kind of good to actually help people understand complex stuff, you know? Story 12. I came out of the changing room in a vintage clothing store, and this one dude shopping with his partner exclaimed, "Holy shit, she looks like Audrey Hepburn." Stunning. I don't like anything like Audrey Hepburn, but I've lived off that compliment for years. Story 13. I have an unusual shade of eye color, so my whole life, that was the one thing I was constantly complimented on as far as physical appearance goes. One time, I was talking to a guy and he said, "You have great lips." I really don't. They are totally mundane and average, but I felt like he wasn't trying to go for the obvious, and I liked that. Chuckles.
Like gray eyes? I knew a girl once with gray eyes. Man, it was so alluring. I felt bad because it was hard to look away from her.
Mine are a very pale blue with a little bit of yellow tinge around the pupil. I have seen truly gray eyes once in my life, and they were so mesmerizing. They looked almost silver.
Story 14. My family tells me I'm intelligent and well-read. I feel inadequate most of the time, so that makes me feel better. Story 15. When I was 14 years ago, my mom and I went to Paris. We were waiting to cross the street, and a young man driving a car was stopped next to us. I heard him say, "Wow, oh my God." And right as he drove off, he shouted to me, "You are so beautiful." Not a crazy compliment, but the fact that he was mulling over my beauty respectfully for a few moments, especially at a time when I had zero confidence in my looks, made me feel incredible. I kept laughing because my mom was getting hit on a ton, so I said something like, "You got another one?" And she responded, "No, he was looking at you. Thanks, wherever you are, French dude."
He lives in my brain rent-free. It genuinely made my whole life, and I just been dumped.
Story 16. I never thought of you as someone who needed to lose weight. I've been chubby, honestly, and a male acquaintance said this to me after I'd lost 20 pounds. I thought it was a nice way to compliment the weight loss without, well, saying I was a cow before. Oha. Chuckles softly. I ended up blowing him a few months later. Then we became friends. Then I moved away. We lost touch. Then he died in his 30s. Anyways, I've used his approach to compliment other people's glow-ups. Story 17. Smiling, a guy in my freshman dorm told me, "You look like an ivory girl, the type that will just get more beautiful with age." Story 18. This is pretty niche, but this question reminded me of it, so it counts. I once had my marksmanship complimented thusly. A group of friends and I were using a rifle to safely blow up small targets like eggs and such. We had one more egg to splat and one last shell for the rifle. I was nominated to take the shot because the group consensus was that I was the most likely to hit it.
Yeah, it splattered in a satisfying manner.
Story 19. Someone once told me I'm very responsible with my money. I've never thought of myself as some expert investor or anything. I keep a clear split between savings, long-term investments, and day-to-day spending. The emergency fund stays untouched. Investments are automatic, so I'm not tempted to time anything. And I try to avoid lifestyle creep even when my income goes up. I even shop online for most things during sales events and holidays, and stack discount codes from Checkmate or Honey, just to save a little extra. I don't share details about accounts or numbers with people, and I think they were noticing my consistency. Paying attention, planning ahead, not panicking when expenses come up. Chuckles. It's funny how a compliment like that made me go on such a rant. Clearly, it stayed with me. Story 20. I heard some teenage girls behind me say, "He's got a nice ass." And another, "Not some fat boomer blob." Chuckles. Made me feel good for the 15 years I'd put into getting that way. Story 21. Someone I worked with 20 years ago wrote me a letter on my last day on the job. And it was so deeply sweet in its entirety. But the ending lines are something that I think about to this day when I need a little self-esteem boost. What is it like to work with a genius? Now I know. Story 22. One of my bosses told me that my intelligence intimidates some of my coworkers, and they didn't like how quickly I saw the problems and the solutions. They said I needed to slow down and wait for everyone else to catch up. I'm not sure if that was meant as a compliment or an insult or what, but it's something I think about often.
I take it as a compliment. Chuckles, screw the other guys who were intimidated. They should have just been happy you were on their team.
Story 23. About 20 years ago, I took my dad to Burlington's because he wanted to buy a new jacket. As we were browsing, an older woman was walking our way, and I sensed that she was staring at me. I felt uneasy about it, but didn't make eye contact. She finally walked up to us, looked at me and said, "Excuse me, young man. Are you a movie actor or someone famous?" I was confused and said, "No, ma'am. I'm just here with my dad to help him buy a jacket." She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to bother you, but you are a beautiful man." She then looked at my dad and said, "You did a good job." It was weird, but I still remember that lady to this day. Story 24. I've had colorful hair for years, and every time a little girl or old lady tells me they like my hair, I get so happy. I still smile when I think about times this has happened. Old ladies like to say, "I'm too old to do that." My response, You're never too old to have fun. Story 25. A stranger at a bookstore once told me I had a really calming presence and that talking to me felt easy. That was maybe 7 years ago, and I still think about it regularly. Something about a compliment from someone with zero obligation to say anything hits completely different. Felt more honest than anything a friend would say. Story 26. I was performing in the English language North American premiere of an award-winning Italian playwright's work. He traveled for the premiere and afterwards said to me that I was a true Venetian. Story 27. A total stranger once told me I was an autumn, and I've never forgotten it. She played the French horn in an orchestra. Totally random, but super sweet moment.
I think so. But this was in the 90s, and I didn't understand at the moment. The spirit in which she said it was so sweet. I've never forgotten it.
Story 28. I get complimented consistently because I really care about helping veterans and their families get their Veterans Affairs benefits. I've been doing this for 19 years, and I'm looking forward to retirement very soon. Warm smile. Story 29. I had this beautiful relationship with this girl. One night we were talking and she told me, I will be proud to have a son like you, and I will wish and trust in him and carve him out at his best. The best. Story 30. She dances like she invented dancing. Watching her is like watching the invention of dance. Story 31. Some older women where I worked said, Oh, I like how you always walk with your head up. Chuckles. That was interesting. Story 32. You are a very competent woman. This from a man I respected and admired. It still makes me smile because from him that was high praise indeed. Story 33. A friend of mine came over for dinner and said, Your house doesn't smell like cats. Chuckles. We have 3 cats and we're constantly cleaning after them. And your house is a maker space. We have a lot of toys, 3D printers, sewing machines, and so on. I have described our decorating style as early grad student and our housekeeping style as there appears to have been a struggle. So these were lovely compliments. Story 34. A couple of years ago, my wife was taking our 12-year-old daughter and 4-year-old granddaughter to the beach for spring break. We didn't know if I could go because I might have needed to go out of state for a meeting. My granddaughter told me, Poppy, I really want you to go. It's always funner when you're there. Chuckles. Story 35. I still remember the moment someone told me, whoever you end up with is going to be a lucky guy. Story 36. In 7th grade, those of us who wanted to be in band were bused to another location with the 7th grade band kids from another school to form one school band. One of the girls from this other school was with me in the flute section. I don't remember the conversation exactly, but at some point we were talking about eyebrows. She told me that I had the most perfect eyebrows, the perfect natural shape that was not too bushy, not too thin, and perfectly matched in color to my natural hair color. I'm now 45. I did not ever touch my brows back then, and haven't really ever. I'm still weirdly proud of my natural eyebrows, even if I'm starting to get the odd white hair in them. So yeah, it's been more than 30 years and I still remember it. I felt so appreciative of this unasked for compliment that I'm sure my insecure 12-year-old self needed. Story 37. Years ago, one late night in Chicago, I walked into the Wiener Circle, the legendary hot dog joint famous for the insult-hurling staff. The older black woman behind the counter snarled venom at everyone in front of me. But when it was my turn, she asked me really sweetly, What you want? Blue eyes? I've never felt more special. Story 38. Chuckles. Someone once told me that I look like the song Mascara by Deftones. That has stuck with me ever since I heard it. Story 39. I was told that I have mesmerizing storybook eyes and that I have a kind, down-to-earth soul. I will always remember that. He just went on about how captivated he is by me. It was a very sweet moment. Story 40. I had a coworker tell me that I made them a better worker. They said they enjoyed working with me, and my work ethic and how I solved problems made them want to work. They'd never felt that way before. We had a lot of fun and did a lot of great work together. Chuckles. It was totally unexpected because I've also had insults along the way that followed that same theme, like, I care too much, why do I want to fix things? And so on. Story 41. A college roommate said I was very smart, and she was sure I'd be successful in whatever I decide to do. Story 42. During Christmas time, while listening to the church choir, apparently a man who sat in front of me heard me singing along. Afterwards, he told me I sounded like an angel. Story 43. I had a Master Sergeant E8 tell me E4 that if I stayed in the army, I would be sitting in his chair. Chuckles. Story 44. I had a girl tell me I ate pussy like a lesbian. Chuckles. As a straight guy, I'm choosing to take that as a compliment, but I'm still not entirely sure what she meant. Story 45. I got called an Ike Men at the first bar I went to in Japan by a girl about this time last year. I've been riding that high ever since. Story 46. Someone once said, "You seem to be a very reflective person," and I think about that a lot. Story 47. The doctor who delivered my first child came to visit the next morning and told me I looked like Kim Novak. It was a bit strange. Story 48. As a heavyset white guy in my early 20s, I was always hanging out with rockabilly and punks. We'd go to shows, drink at dive bars. Whatever. I almost always had a fixation for pale, tattooed girls with Betty Page bangs. One day I was running an errand and went to the bank. Behind me in line was a middle-aged black woman. The guy in front of me said something like, "Man, this line is taking forever."
I casuali raplia. Ea, no juca.
You'd think they'd open a second teller. Immediately the black woman said, "Oh, you got some bass in your voice for a white boy. You got any black in you? Oh, now you turned around, I can see it. You got our lips. Oh, you gonna make some girl make a bad decision tonight, honey?" I just laughed, blushed, and said thank you. She made a few more comments, but the one I still remember is, "You got some bass in your voice for a white boy." Story 49. I've been told twice that I look like Colin Farrell and once like Ryan Bingham. The Colin one really stuck with me because I love him as an actor. And the Ryan one, well, I didn't know who he was, so I had to look him up. But he's a good-looking dude, so hey, that's cool. Chuckles. Story 50. Two pretty unique ones. One was a nickname at a former workplace. Mr. Downey Man. Because my clothes always smelled fresh despite working in a restaurant, where you go home smelling like the food. And I got a compliment that I have the best-looking calves. Pretty out there, but I'll take it. Story 51. One of the last things my old boss told me before I finished working at his restaurant after 7 years was that I was a Southern gentleman. Story 52. I was at an open mic in Seattle at the Weathered Wall back in the 90s, and a teenage girl got up and read one of my poems from a book from years back, with an edition of only 500. She called it her favorite.
This absolutely wins the thread for me. I mean, what are the odds? That's really special. Please tell us you made yourself and your authorship known to her.
Yeah, I even offered to buy her a basket of French fries. I was embarrassed and floored.
Story 53. I had a rare life-threatening allergy incident about a decade ago that caused a full-body rash, bumps, skin peeling, swelling, cystic acne, the whole 9 yards. I looked truly ghoulish. Think meatwad in a wig, basically. Chuckles. Someone I was sort of involved with at the time, it was complicated, was concerned about me and asked me to send a selfie because they wanted to see that I was okay. I was not okay, but I was stable, being treated, and starting to look a teeny bit better. I tried very hard to smile, but my face was so sore, swollen, and red it was difficult to move at all. I honestly can't believe I sent a selfie of my ground beef-looking face to someone I was interested in. I looked like hell, but they replied instantly and sincerely told me I was beautiful. I remember being mortified by that response at the time, thinking, well, if they think this is beautiful, I must look pretty shitty even on a good day. Even my mom had requested I not send her photos. Children hid behind their parents when they saw me at the hospital. It was bad. But eventually, I pulled my head out of my ass and was like, oh, I think that was love? Whoosh. Anyway, very memorable. Find yourself someone who tells you you're pretty even when you look like turkey jerky. Story 54. My brother simply said, I love your music taste. And to this day, It's been my favorite compliment I've ever gotten because, coming from my brother, I know he meant it. Chuckles. Story 55. My friend decided to stay with me while she was in town, instead of with my brother. She felt the need to explain, which really, there was no reason to, but she said, "My name just feels like home." That was the best compliment I've ever received. Story 56. I once got offhandedly told that I'd look good in a field of sunflowers. That one. Story 57. A classmate wrote in my yearbook, "You have the gift of seeing people beyond what others think of them." We weren't friends, but we spoke to each other. I had no idea that she observed me that closely. She was a grade ahead of me. Story 58. You're going to be a great doctor. In a time when I didn't believe in myself and felt forced to fit this mold. Story 59. Reflective, a male manager in his 50s once told me, a woman in her mid-20s, that if I could find the self-confidence that matched the confidence he had in me, I'd go very far.
Story 60. Una profesora me dijo que tenía una sonrisa tan linda que en un futuro conseguiría lo que quisiera solo sonriendo. Tenía 12 años. Story 61. Uma vez eu estava me sentindo um pouco mal. Sabe? Aí minhas amigas começaram a falar que o formato do meu rosto era bonito e que queriam ter assim e me chamaram de linda.
Story 62. This was years ago, when boys in the south of the USA had train horns and loudspeakers on their pickup trucks. I was crossing the street, and this boy stopped first at the light, got on his loudspeaker and hollered, "Dance! Too much booty in the pants. Dance! Too much booty in the pants." And that is a high I'm still chasing. Story 63. A boy called me cute in 10th grade. I'm almost 30, and I still question if it was sincere. Story 64. While shopping, a girl came up to me out of nowhere and told me, "Just wanted to tell you that you are beautiful." That made my day. It's very memorable since no one has ever told me that before. Story 65. Someone said that I'm a man written by a woman. Next week, she breaks up with me. Fucking hurts to this day. Story 66. A girl once complimented my bicycle in junior high school. I didn't know who she was, but I'll always cherish that moment. Story 67. That I was the best fuck she ever had, and that she'd been wanting to do it for a very long time. Story 68. I was told, "You make me open up comfortably with you every time," and I was never able to do that before. Story 69. Chuckles softly. My brother accused me of having colored contact lenses when I couldn't even get those in my prescription. I think it was the only compliment I ever got from him. Story 70. I had a woman standing across from me on the L in Chicago. I was working at a restaurant at the time in grungy clothes. Probably reeked. She was standing right across from me. As she walked off the train, she said, "You have a nice beard," and smiled. That was it. To be fair, I noticed her too. This was years and years ago, but it always stuck with me. I remember her being really cute as well. I was in a relationship at the time, so I did nothing. I just said, "Thanks." She walked away, and I later married the person I was with. All good, but a fun memory and compliment that came out of nowhere. Story 71. This is a hard one. The first one that pops into my mind is some random outfit getting complimented by a stranger on the street, but I'd say my personal favorite is one of my best friends comparing me to a fish and giving really in-depth reasoning. Story 72. You could be a great writer if you choose to be. That was written by my teacher on a short story I wrote for my last assignment in 12th grade English class. Story 73. A friend from high school said to my mom and me, the last time I saw him before he left for Army boot camp, that I was the most loyal person he knew or had ever met. I've had other people say the same thing about me as well. Story 74. A coworker once told me that I should start an autonomous sensory meridian response channel because my voice is so soothing. That was really nice to hear. Story 75. Back when I did about 50 push-ups a day, I was in the subway waiting for a train. A woman called out, "Hey, nice arms." I'm still riding that high. Story 76. I remember every single compliment given by women and a few men. I honestly think I'll remember them until my deathbed. We men are simple creatures. A single compliment will make our entire day. Story 77. My 7-year-old granddaughter said to me, "You're the very best person I know in my whole life." The other grandchild, who was about 5, said, "If my mother dies and has to go to the hospital, can I come live with you?" Story 78. My English teacher called me a troll because my smile takes away all the problems I caused. Chuckles. Story 79. I was the only white face in the choir of the Integrated Historic Black Church we attend. An elderly gentleman who became a dear friend said I blended in so well. He would call me White Chocolate henceforth. I miss him so much. He passed a little over a year ago. Story 80. Softly, I love you, especially coming from my first love. I still think about it once in a while. Story 81. Warm, that I'm approachable with a warm personality. I embellish that compliment with pride. Story 82. Damn, you've got a good left uppercut. That's what a guy at the gym said after I obliged and trained with him. I had no idea at that point.